About 1 in the morning. Beaver Lane, off Amiens Street.
Preparatory to anything else, Mr. Bloom brushed off the greater bulk of the shavings and handed Stephen the hat and ash plant and bucked him up generally in orthodox Samaritan fashion, which he very badly needed. Stephen's mind was not exactly what you would call wandering, but a bit unsteady, and on his expressed desire for some beverage to drink, Mr. Bloom, in view of the hour it was, hit upon an expedient by suggesting, off the reel, the propriety of the cabman's shelter, as it was called. En route to his taciturn, and not to put too fine a point on it, not yet perfectly sober companion, Mr. Bloom, who at all events was in complete possession of his faculties, never more so, in fact disgustingly sober, spoke a word of caution re the dangers of Night-Town, women of ill fame and swell mobsmen, which, barely permissible once in a while, though not as an habitual practice, was of the nature of a regular death-trap for young fellows of his age, particularly if they had acquired drinking habits under the influence of liquor. "I don't mean to presume to dictate to you in the slightest degree," Mr. Bloom ejaculated, "but why did you leave your father's house?" "To seek misfortune," was Stephen's answer. "I met your respected father on a recent occasion," Mr. Bloom diplomatically returned. "Today, in fact, or to be strictly accurate, on yesterday. A gifted man," Mr. Bloom said of Mr. Dedalus Senior, "in more respects than one, and a born raconteur, if ever there was one. He takes great pride, quite legitimate, out of you. You could go back," he hazarded. There was no response forthcoming to the suggestion, however, Stephen's mind's eye being too busily engaged in repicturing his family hearth the last time he saw it, with his sister Dilly sitting by the ingle, her hair hanging down, waiting for some weak Trinidad shell cocoa that was in the soot-coated kettle to be done, so that she could drink it with the oatmeal water for milk after the Friday herrings they had eaten at 2 a penny in accordance with the 3rd precept of the Church to fast and abstain on the days commanded. Mr. Bloom and Stephen entered the cabman's shelter, an unpretentious wooden structure, where, prior to then, he had rarely, if ever, been before, the former having previously whispered to the latter a few hints anent the keeper of it, said to be the once famous Skin-the-Goat Fitzharris the Invincible, though he could not vouch for the actual facts. "Now, touching a cup of coffee," Mr. Bloom ventured to plausibly suggest to break the ice, "it occurs to me you ought to sample something in the shape of solid food, say a roll of some description." Accordingly, his first act was, with characteristic sang-froid, to order these commodities quietly. The hoi polloi of Jarvies or stevedores or whatever they were, already there, after a cursory examination, turned their eyes, apparently dissatisfied, away, though one red-bearded bibulous individual, a portion of whose hair was greyish, a sailor probably, still stared for some time before transferring his rapt attention to the floor. The keeper of the shelter put a boiling swimming cup of a choice concoction labelled coffee on the table, and a rather antediluvian specimen of a bun, or so it seemed. The red-bearded sailor, who had his weather eye on the newcomers, boarded Stephen, whom he had singled out for attention in particular, squarely by asking, "And what might your name be?" "Dedalus." The sailor stared at him heavily from a pair of drowsy, baggy eyes. "You know Simon Dedalus?" he asked at length. "I've heard of him," Stephen said. "He's Irish," the seaman boldly affirmed. "All too Irish," Stephen rejoined. "I seen him shoot 2 eggs off 2 bottles at 50 yards over his shoulder. The left hand dead shot." He did his best to explain. "Bottles out there, say, 50 yards measured, eggs on bottles, cocks his gun over his shoulder, aims." He turned his body half round, shut up his eye completely. Then he screwed his features up some ways sideways and glared out into the night with an unprepossessing cast of countenance. "Pom!" he then shouted once. The entire audience waited, anticipating an additional detonation, there being still a further egg. "Pom!" he shouted twice. Egg 2 evidently demolished, he nodded and winked, adding bloodthirstily, "Buffalo Bill shoots to kill, never missed, nor he never will." He toured with Hengler's Royal Circus. I seen him do that in Stockholm. Curious coincidence, Mr. Bloom confided to Stephen unobtrusively. Murphy is my name, the sailor continued. D.B. Murphy of Carrigallow. Know where that is? The Queenstown Harbour, Stephen replied. That's right, the sailor said. That's where I hails from. My little woman's down there waiting for England, home and beauty. We come up this morning, 11 o'clock. The three master rows vein from Bridgewater with bricks. You must have seen a fair share of the world, the keeper remarked, leaning on the counter. Why, the sailor answered upon reflection on it, I've circumnavigated a bit since I first joined on. You seen some queer sights, don't be talking, put in a Jarvey. Why, the sailor said, I seen a crocodile bite the fluke of an anchor same as I chew that quid. He took out of his mouth the pulpy quid, and lodging it between his teeth, bit ferociously. Ha-ha! Like that! And I seen man-eaters in Peru eats corpses and the livers of horses. I seen a Chinese one time that had little pills like putty and put them in the water and they opened and every pill was something different. One was a ship, another was a house, another was a flower. Cooks rats in your soup, he appetizingly added. The Chinks does. Possibly perceiving an expression of dubiosity on their faces, the globe-trotter went on, adhering to his adventures. And I seen a man killed in Trieste by an Italian chap, knife in his back, knife like that. While speaking, he produced a dangerous-looking clasp knife, quite in keeping with his character, and held it in the striking position. In a knocking shop it was, count of a try-on between two smugglers. Chuck, it went into his back up to the butt. After which harrowing denouement, sufficient to appall the stoutest, he snapped the blade to and stowed the weapon in question away. They're great for the cold steel, somebody who was evidently quite in the dark said for the benefit of them all. That was why they thought the Park murders by the Invincibles was done by foreigners, on account of them using knives. At this remark, passed obviously in the spirit of where ignorance is bliss, Mr. B. and Stephen, each in his own particular way, both instinctively exchanged meaning glances towards where Skin the Goat, alias the keeper, not turning a hair, was drawing spurts of liquid from his boiler affair. Then ensued a somewhat lengthy pause. "Have you seen the Rock of Gibraltar?" Mr. Bloom inquired. The sailor grimaced in a way that might be read as yes, aye, or no. "Ah, you've touched there too," Mr. Bloom said. "Europa Point." Thinking he had, in the hope the rover might possibly buy some reminiscences, but he failed to do so, simply letting spurt a jet of spew into the sawdust, and shook his head with lazy scorn. "I'm tired of all them rocks in the sea," he said, "and boats and ships, salt junk all the time. There was a fella sailed with me in the Rover," the old sea dog proceeded. "Went ashore and took up a soft job as gentleman's valet at £6 a month. He gave me that jackknife. I'm game for that job, shaving and brush up. I hate all this roaming about." "Can't you drink that coffee, by the way?" Mr. Bloom observed. "Let me stir it, and take a piece of that bun. Try a bit." "Couldn't," Stephen contrived to get out, his mental organs for the moment refusing to dictate further. "But it's solid food," his good genius urged. "I'm a stickler for solid food." "Liquids I can eat," Stephen said, "but oh, oblige me by taking away that knife. I cannot look at the point of it. It reminds me of Roman history." Mr. Bloom promptly removed the incriminated article, a blunt, horn-handled ordinary knife with nothing particularly Roman or antique about it to the lay eye. "Our mutual friend's stories," Mr. Bloom, apropos of knives, remarked to his confidant sotto voce. "Do you think they're genuine? The stab in the back touch was quite in keeping with those Italianos. Spaniards, for instance, passionate temperaments like that, are given to taking the law into their own hands and giving you your quietus with those poignards they carry. It comes from the great heat, climate generally. My wife is, so to speak, Spanish, having been born in, technically, Spain, i.e. Gibraltar. She has the Spanish type, quite dark, regular brunette, black. I, for one, certainly believe climate accounts for character. It's in the blood. All are washed in the blood of the sun." All meantime were loudly lamenting the falling off in Irish shipping coastwise and foreign as well, which was all part and parcel of the same thing. Right enough, the harbours were there, only no ships ever called. There were wrecks and wreckers, the keeper said, who was evidently au fait. What he wanted to ascertain was why that ship ran bang against the only rock in Galway Bay. Ask the captain, he advised them, how much palm oil the British government gave him for that day's work, Captain John Lever of the Lever Line. Am I right, skipper? He queried of the sailor. That worthy boisterously trawled like a veritable son of a sea cook. The biscuit was as hard as brass, and the beef as salt as Lot's wife's arse. Oh, Johnny Lever, Johnny Lever, oh! After which effusion, Skin the Goat, assuming it was he, evidently with an axe to grind, started airing his grievances anent the natural resources of Ireland, which he described as drained out of it by England. But a day of reckoning, he stated, was in store. The Boers were the beginning of the end. Brummagem, England, was toppling, and her downfall would be Ireland, her Achilles' heel. A point his auditors at once seized as he completely gripped the tendon referred to on his boot. His advice was to stay and live in Ireland for Ireland. Ireland. Ireland, Parnell said, could not spare a single one of her sons. Mr. Bloom had heard not so long before the same identical lingo, as he told Stephen how he simply but effectively silenced the offender. I'm as good an Irishman as that rude man I told you about, and I want to see everyone, all creeds and classes, pro rata, having a comfortable, tidy-sized income in the neighbourhood of £300 per annum. I call that patriotism. Ubi patria, as we learned a smattering in our classical days in Alma Mater, vita bene. Where you can live well, the sense is, if you work. Stephen stared at nothing in particular. Count me out, he managed to remark, meaning work. I mean, of course, the other hastened to affirm, work in the widest possible sense. Also literary labour. What? You both belong to Ireland, the brain and the brawn. Each is equally important. You suspect, Stephen retorted with a sort of half-laugh, that I may be important because I belong to the Faubourg Saint-Patrice, called Ireland for short. I would go a step farther, Mr. Bloom insinuated. But I suspect, Stephen interrupted, that Ireland must be important because it belongs to me. What belongs? Queried Mr. Bloom, bending, fancying he was perhaps under some misapprehension. Excuse me, what was it you... Stephen, patently cross-tempered, repeated and shoved aside his mug of coffee or whatever you like to call it, none too politely, adding, We can't change the country, let us change the subject. At this pertinent suggestion, Mr. Bloom, to change the subject, looked down at the pink edition of the Telegraph, as luck would have it, beside his elbow. So to change the subject, he read about Dignam, R.I.P. This morning, Hines put it in, of course, the remains of the late Mr. Patrick Dignam were removed from his residence, number 9 Newbridge Avenue, Sandymount, for interment at Glasnevin. The deceased gentleman was a genial and most popular personality in city life, and his demise after a brief illness came as a great shock to citizens of all classes by whom he is deeply regretted. The mourners included Patrick Dignam's son, Bernard Corrigan, brother-in-law, John Henry Menton, solicitor, Martin Cunningham, John Power, Thomas Kernan, Simon Dedalus, Stephen Dedalus, B.A., Edward J. Lambert, Cornelius T. Kelleher, Joseph M.C. Hines, L. Boom, Mackintosh, and several others. Nettled not a little by L. Boom, but tickled to death by Stephen Dedalus, B.A., who was conspicuous by his absence, to say nothing of Mackintosh, L. Boom pointed out to his companion B.A., who was engaged in stifling a yawn, the misprints. "Is that first epistle to the Hebrews?" he asked as soon as his bottom jaw would let him in. "Text, open thy mouth and put thy foot in it." "It is, really," Mr. Bloom said, though not apprehending until he added about foot and mouth. "There." While his companion was reading it, the cabman affirmed that one day you would open the paper and read, "Return of Parnell." He bet them what they liked. A Dublin Fusilier was in that shelter and said he saw him in South Africa. The coffin they brought over was full of stones. He changed his name to De Vet, the Boer General. He made a mistake to fight the priests. "That O'Shea bitch, that English whore, did for him," the Shebeen proprietor commented. "She put the first nail in his coffin." "She also was Spanish, or half so," passionate abandon of the South, casting every shred of decency to the winds, just bears out what I was saying. The King of Spain's daughter, Stephen answered, adding something or other rather muddled about farewell and adieu to you. Was she? Bloom ejaculated, surprised, not astonished. I never heard that rumour before. Possible. Carefully avoiding a book in his pocket, Sweets of, he took out his pocket-book and, turning over the various contents it contained, finally he... Do you consider, by the by, he said, thoughtfully, selecting a faded photo, that to be the Spanish type? Stephen, obviously addressed, looked on the photo, showing a large-sized lady with her fleshy charms on evidence, standing near a piano, on the rest of which was In Old Madrid, a ballad then all the vogue. Mrs. Bloom, my wife, the prima donna Madame Marion Tweedy, taken a few years since, about 96, very like her then. The vicinity of the young man he certainly relished, educated, distingué, and impulsive into the bargain, far and away the pick of the bunch, though you wouldn't think he had it in him, yet you would. Besides, he said the picture was handsome, which, say which like, it was, though at the moment she was distinctly stouter. And why not? An awful lot of make-believe went on about that sort of thing. Anyway, Bloom reflected, getting on for one as it was high time to be retiring for the night. The crux was, it was a bit risky to bring him home, as eventualities might ensue. Somebody having a temper of her own sometimes. On the other hand, it was altogether far and away too late for the Sandymount or Sandy Cove suggestion. To cut a long story short, Bloom was the first to rise from his seat, having first taken the wise precaution to unobtrusively motion to mine host to the effect that the amount due was forthcoming, making a grand total of 4 pence, the amount he deposited unobtrusively in 4 coppers. Stephen was a bit weak on his pins. Accordingly, Bloom passed his left arm in Stephen's right and led him on accordingly. So they turned to chatting about music, a form of art for which Bloom, as a pure amateur, possessed the greatest love, as they tracked arm in arm across Beresford Place. Wagnerian music, though confessedly grand in its way, was a bit too heavy for Bloom, but the music of Mercadente's Huguenots and Mozart's 12th Mass he simply revelled in, being to his mind the acme of first-class music as such, literally knocking everything else into a cocked hat. Stephen, in reply, launched out in praises of the lutenist Dowland and Bird, William, who played the virginals, he said, in the Queen's Chapel or anywhere else he found them, and John Bull. On the roadway, a horse dragging a sweeper paced the paven ground, so that with the noise, Bloom was not perfectly certain whether he had caught aright the allusion to John Bull. He inquired if it was John Bull, the political celebrity of that ilk. The horse slowly swerved to turn, which, perceiving, Bloom plucked the other's sleeve gently. Our lives are in peril tonight. What was I saying? Ah, yes, my wife, he intimated, plunging in, would have the greatest pleasure in making your acquaintance, as she is passionately attached to music of any kind. He looked sideways in a friendly fashion at the side face of Stephen, image of his mother. Exquisite variations he was now describing on an air, Youth Here Has End, by Jan Peter Swelink, a Dutchman of Amsterdam. Even more, he liked an old German song of Johannes Jeep about the voices of sirens, which boggled Bloom a bit. Von der Sirenen Listigkeit, tun die Poeten dichten. These opening bars he sang and translated extempore. Bloom begged him to go on, which he did. A phenomenally beautiful tenor voice like that, the rarest of boons, which Bloom appreciated the first note he got out, could easily, if properly handled by some recognized authority on voice production, command its own price, where baritones were 10 a penny, and it need not detract from the other by 1 iota. As being his own master, he would have heaps of time to practice literature in his spare moments. In fact, he had the ball at his feet.
Nearly 2 in the morning.
What parallel courses did Bloom and Stephen follow, returning?
Starting united, both at normal walking pace, from Beresford Place they followed, in the order named, Lower and Middle Gardiner Streets and Mount Joy Square West.
Then, at reduced pace with interruptions of halt, Temple Street North as far as Hardwick Place. At relaxed walking pace they crossed both the circus before George's Church diametrically, the chord in any circle being less than the arc which it subtends.
Of what did the duumvirate deliberate during their itinerary?
Music, literature, Ireland, Dublin, Paris, friendship, women, prostitution, diet, ecclesiastical celibacy, the Irish nation, Jesuit education, Stephen's collapse.
Did Bloom discover common factors of similarity between their respective like and unlike reactions to experience during their itinerary?
Both were sensitive to artistic impressions, musical in preference to plastic or pictorial. Both preferred a continental to an insular manner of life, a cis-Atlantic to a transatlantic place of residence.
Were their views on some points divergent?
Stephen dissented from Bloom's views on the importance of dietary and civic self-help, while Bloom dissented tacitly from Stephen's views on the eternal affirmation of the spirit of man in literature.
What act did Bloom make on their arrival at their destination?
At the house steps of the fourth of the equidifferent uneven numbers, number 7 Eccles Street, he inserted his hand mechanically into the back pocket of his trousers to obtain his latchkey.
Was it there?
It was in the corresponding pocket of the trousers he had worn on the day but one preceding.
Why was he doubly irritated?
Because he had forgotten, and because he remembered that he had reminded himself twice not to forget.
What, then, were the alternatives before the premeditatedly, respectively, and inadvertently keyless couple?
To enter or not to enter, to knock or not to knock.
Bloom's decision.
A stratagem. Resting his feet on the dwarf wall, he climbed over the area railings, compressed his hat on his head, grasped 2 points of the lower union of rails and stiles, lowered his body gradually by its length of 5 feet 9 inches and a half to within 2 feet 10 inches of the area pavement, and allowed his body to move freely in space by separating himself from the railings.
Did he rise uninjured?
Regaining new stable equilibrium, he rose uninjured, raised the latch of the area door by the exertion of force in its freely moving flange, and gained retarded access to the kitchen through the sub-adjacent scullery, ignited a lucifer match by friction, set free inflammable coal gas by turning the vent cock, lit a high flame which, by regulating, he reduced to quiescent incandescence, and lit, finally, a portable candle.
What discrete succession of images did Stephen meanwhile perceive?
After a lapse of 4 minutes, the glimmer of a candle was discernible through the semi-transparent, semicircular glass fanlight over the hall door. The hall door turned gradually on its hinges. In the open space of the doorway, a man appeared without a hat, with a candle.
Did Stephen obey his sign?
Yes. Entering softly, he helped close and chain the door and followed softly along the hallway, the lighted candle past a lighted crevice of doorway on the left, and carefully down a turning staircase of more than 5 steps into the kitchen of Bloom's house.
What did Stephen see in the kitchen?
Under a row of 5 coiled spring house bells, a curvilinear rope, from which hung 4 small-sized square handkerchiefs, and 1 pair of ladies' grey hose with lisle, suspender tops and feet in their habitual position, clamped by 3 erect wooden pegs.
What did Bloom see on the range?
On the right, smaller hob, a blue enamel saucepan. On the left, larger hob, a black iron kettle.
What did Bloom do at the range?
He removed the saucepan to the left hob and carried the iron kettle to the sink in order to tap the current by turning the faucet to let it flow.
Did it flow?
Yes. From Roundwood Reservoir in County Wicklow of a cubic capacity of 2,400 million gallons, percolating through a subterranean aqueduct of filter mains and double pipage, constructed at an initial cost of £5 per linear yard, by way of the Dargle, Rathdown, Glen of Downs and Callow Hill, to the 26-acre reservoir at Stillorgan, a distance of 22 statute miles, and thence through a system of relieving tanks by a gradient of 250 feet to the city boundary at Eustace Bridge, Upper Leeson Street.
Having set the half-filled kettle on the burning coals, why did he return to the still-flowing tap?
To wash his soiled hands with a partially consumed tablet of Barrington's lemon-flavoured soap, to which paper still adhered, bought 13 hours previously for 4pence and still unpaid for.
What lay under exposure on the lower, middle and upper shelves of the kitchen dresser opened by Bloom?
On the lower shelf, 5 vertical breakfast plates, 6 horizontal breakfast saucers on which rested 5 inverted breakfast cups, a moustache cup uninverted and a saucer of Crown Derby. On the upper shelf, a battery of jam jars empty of various sizes and provenances.
What attracted his attention lying on the apron of the dresser?
4 polygonal fragments of 2 lacerated scarlet betting tickets, numbered 887, 886.
What reminiscences temporarily corrugated his brow?
Reminiscences of coincidences, truth stranger than fiction, pre-indicative of the result of the Gold Cup flat handicap.
Where had intimations of the result, effected or projected, been received by him?
In Bernard Kieran's licensed premises, 8, 9 and 10 Little Britain Street. In Lincoln Place, outside the premises of F.W. Sweeney & Co. Limited, dispensing chemists, when Frederick M. Bantam Lyons had rapidly requested and perused the copy of the current issue of the Freeman's Journal and National Press, which he had been about to throw away, subsequently thrown away.
His mood?
He had not risked, he did not expect, he had not been disappointed, he was satisfied.
What satisfied him?
To have sustained no positive loss, to have brought a positive gain to others, light to the Gentiles.
How did Bloom prepare a collation for a Gentile?
He poured into 2 teacups, 2 level spoonfuls, 4 in all, of Epps-soluble cocoa.
What supererogatory marks of special hospitality did the host show his guest?
He served extraordinarily to his guest, and in reduced measure to himself, the viscous cream ordinarily reserved for the breakfast of his wife, Marion, Molly.
Who drank more quickly?
Bloom, having the advantage of 10 seconds at the initiation, and taking from the concave surface of the spoon, along the handle of which a steady flow of heat was conducted, 3 sips to his opponent's 1, 6-2, 9-3.
What relation existed between their ages?
16 years before, in 1888, when Bloom was of Stephen's present age, Stephen was 6. 16 years after, in 1920, when Stephen would be of Bloom's present age, Bloom would be 54. In 1936, when Bloom would be 70 and Stephen 54, their ages initially in the ratio of 16:0 would be as 17.5 to 13.5, the proportion increasing and the disparity diminishing according as arbitrary future years were added. For if the proportion existing in 1883 had continued immutable, conceiving that to be possible, till then, 1904, when Stephen was 22, Bloom would be 374, and in 1920, when Stephen would be 38, as Bloom then was, Bloom would be 646, while in 1952, when Stephen would have attained the maximum post-Diluvian age of 70, Bloom, being 1,190 years alive, having been born in the year 714, would have surpassed by 221 years the maximum antediluvian age, that of Methuselah, 969 years, while, if Stephen would continue to live until he would attain that age in the year 3072 AD, Bloom would have been obliged to have been alive 83,300 years, having been obliged to have been born in the year 81,396 BC.
Did either openly allude to their racial difference?
Neither.
What, reduced to their simplest reciprocal form, were Bloom's thoughts about Stephen's thoughts about Bloom, and about Stephen's thoughts about Bloom's thoughts about Stephen?
He thought that he was a Jew, whereas he knew that he knew that he knew that he was not.
Did they find their educational careers similar?
Substituting Stephen for Bloom, Stoom would have passed successively through a dame school and the high school.
Substituting Bloom for Stephen Bleven would have passed successively through the preparatory, junior, middle and senior grades of the intermediate, and through the matriculation, first arts, second arts and arts degree courses of the Royal University.
What 2 temperaments did they individually represent?
The scientific.
The artistic.
What proofs did Bloom adduce to prove that his tendency was towards applied rather than towards pure science?
Certain possible inventions of which he had cogitated. Arithmetical gelatine lozenges, geometrical to correspond with zoological biscuits, globe map playing balls, historically costumed dolls.
What also stimulated his cogitations?
The infinite possibilities hitherto unexploited of the modern art of advertisement, to arrest involuntary attention, to interest, to convince, to decide.
Such as?
His own ideated and rejected project for an illuminated show cart drawn by a beast of burden in which 2 smartly dressed girls were to be seated engaged in writing.
What suggested scene was then constructed by Stephen?
Solitary hotel in Mountain Pass. Autumn. Twilight. Firelit. In dark corner, young man seated. Young woman enters. Restless, solitary. She sits. On solitary hotel paper she writes. She thinks, she writes, she sighs. Wheels and hoofs, she hurries out. He comes from his dark corner. He seizes solitary paper. He holds it towards fire. Twilight, he reads, solitary.
What?
In sloping, upright and back hands. Queen's Hotel, Queen's Hotel, Queen's Hotel, Queen's Hotel.
What suggested scene was then reconstructed by Bloom?
The Queen's Hotel, Ennis, County Clare, where Rudolf Bloom, Rudolf Virag, died on the evening of the 27th of June, 1886, at some hour unstated in consequence of an overdose of monkshood, aconite, self-administered.
Did he attribute this homonymity to information or coincidence or intuition?
Coincidence.
What fragments of verse from the ancient Hebrew and ancient Irish languages were cited with modulations of voice and translations of texts by guest to host and by host to guest?
By Stephen, Shul, Shul, Shul Arun, Shul Gashikar, Shul Gakuin. Walk, walk, walk your way. Walk in safety, walk with care.
By Bloom, Kifelok Harimon, Reketek Umbad Las Samataye. Thy temple amid thy hair is as a slice of pomegranate.
What anthem did Bloom chant?
Kolod ba leva plima nesesh yahode kamiya.
What was Stephen's auditive sensation?
He heard in a profound, ancient, male, unfamiliar melody the accumulation of the past.
Did the host encourage his guest to chant in a modulated voice a strange legend on an allied theme?
Reassuringly, their place where none could hear them talk being secluded.
Recite the first major part of this chanted legend.
Little Harry Hughes and his schoolfellows all went out for to play ball, and the very first ball little Harry Hughes played, he drove it o'er the Jew's garden wall, and the very second ball little Harry Hughes played, he broke the Jew's windows all.
How did the son of Rudolph receive this first part?
With unmixed feeling. Smiling a Jew, he heard with pleasure, and saw the unbroken kitchen window.
Recite the second part, minor, of the legend.
Then out there came the Jew's daughter, and she all dressed in green. Come back, you pretty little boy, and play your ball again. I can't come back, and I won't come back, without my schoolfellows all. For if my master he did hear, he'd make it a sorry ball. She took him by the lily-white hand, and led him along the hall, until she led him to a room where none could hear him call. She took a penknife out of her pocket and cut off his little head, and now he'll play his ball no more, for he lies among the dead.
How did the father of Millicent receive this second part?
With mixed feelings. Unsmiling, he heard and saw with wonder a Jew's daughter all dressed in green.
Why was the host silent?
He weighed the possible evidences for and against ritual murder. The incitations of the hierarchy, the superstition of the populace, the propagation of rumour and continued fraction of veridicity, the envy of opulence, the influence of retaliation, the sporadic reappearance of atavistic delinquency, the mitigating circumstances of fanaticism, hypnotic suggestion, and somnambulism.
Had this latter, or any cognate phenomenon, declared itself in any member of his family?
Twice. In Holly Street and in Ontario Terrace. His daughter Millicent, Millie, at the age of 6 and 8 years, had uttered in sleep an exclamation of terror and had replied to the interrogations of two figures in night attire with a vacant, mute expression.
What proposal did Bloom, deambulist, father of Millie, somnambulist, make to Stephen, noctambulist?
To pass in repose the hours intervening between Thursday proper and Friday normal on an extemporized cubicle in the apartment immediately above the kitchen and adjacent to the sleeping apartment of his host and hostess.
What various advantages would or might have resulted from a prolongation of such an extemporization?
For the guest, security of domicile and seclusion of study. For the host, rejuvenation of intelligence, vicarious satisfaction. For the hostess, disintegration of obsession, acquisition of correct Italian pronunciation.
Was the proposal of asylum accepted?
Promptly, inexplicably, with amicability, gratefully it was declined.
What did each do at the door of egress?
Bloom set the candlestick on the floor. Stephen put his hat on his head.
For what creature was the door of egress a door of ingress?
For a cat.
What spectacle confronted them when they, first the host, then the guest, emerged silently, doubly dark, from obscurity by a passage from the rear of the house into the penumbra of the garden?
The heaven tree of stars hung with humid night blue fruit.
What visible luminous sign attracted Bloom's who attracted Stephen's gaze?
In the second story, rear of his Bloom's house, the light of a paraffin oil lamp with a bleak shade projected on a screen of roller blind supplied by Frank O'Hara, window blind, curtain pole and revolving shutter manufacturer, 16 Ainger Street.
How did he elucidate the mystery of an invisible attractive person, his wife Marion Molly Bloom, denoted by a visible splendid sign, a lamp?
With indirect and direct verbal allusions or affirmations, with subdued affection and admiration, with description, with impediment, with suggestion.
Both then were silent.
Silent, each contemplating the other in both mirrors of the reciprocal flesh of their his-not-his fellow faces.
Were they definitely inactive?
At Stephen's suggestion, at Bloom's instigation, both, first Stephen, then Bloom, in penumbra urinated, their sides contiguous, their organs of micturation reciprocally rendered invisible by manual circumposition, their gazes, first Bloom's, then Stephen's, elevated to the projected luminous and semi-luminous shadow.
How did they take their leave, one of the other, in separation?
Standing perpendicular at the same door and on different sides of its base, the lines of their valedictory arms meeting at any point and forming any angle less than the sum of two right angles.
What sound accompanied the union of their tangent, the disunion of their, respectively, centrifugal and centripetal hands?
The sound of the peal of the hour of the night by the chime of the bells in the church of St. George.
What echoes of that sound were by both and each heard?
By Stephen, Liliata rutilantium turma circumdet, jubilantium te virginum, chorus excipiat.
By Bloom, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho.
Where were the several members of the company which with Bloom that day, at the bidding of that peal, had travelled from Sandymount in the south to Glasnevin in the north?
Martin Cunningham in bed, Jack Power in bed, Simon Dedalus in bed, Ned Lambert in bed, Tom Kernan in bed, Joe Hines in bed, John Henry Menton in bed, Bernard Corrigan in bed, Patsy Dignam in bed, Paddy Dignam in the grave.
Alone, what did Bloom feel?
The cold of interstellar space, thousands of degrees below freezing point or absolute zero of Fahrenheit or centigrade, the incipient intimations of proximate dawn.
Did he remain?
With deep inspiration, he returned, retraversing the garden, re-entering the passage, reclosing the door. With brief suspiration, he reassumed the candle, reapproached the door of the front room, hall floor, and re-entered.
What past consecutive causes of accumulated fatigue did Bloom silently recapitulate?
The preparation of breakfast, burnt offering, intestinal congestion and premeditative defecation, Holy of Holies, the bath, rite of John, the funeral, rite of Samuel, the advertisement of Alexander Keys, Urim and Thummim, the insubstantial lunch, rite of Melchizedek, the visit to the museum and National Library, Holy Place, the book hunt, Simhat Torah, the music in the Ormond Hotel, Shira Shirim, the altercation with a truculent troglodyte in Bernard Kiernan's premises, Holocaust, a blank period of time including a car drive, a visit to a house of mourning, a leave-taking, wilderness. The eroticism produced by feminine exhibitionism, rite of Onan, the prolonged delivery of Mrs. Mina Purifroy, heave offering, the visit to the disorderly house of Mrs. Bella Cone, 82 Tyrone Street Lower, and subsequent brawl and chance medley in Beaver Street, Armageddon, nocturnal perambulation to and from the cabman shelter, Butt Bridge, atonement.
What enigma did Bloom not comprehend?
Who was Mackintosh?
Bloom's acts.
He deposited the articles of clothing on a chair, removed his remaining articles of clothing, took from beneath the bolster at the head of the bed a folded long white nightshirt, removed a pillow from the head to the foot of the bed, prepared the bed linen accordingly, and entered the bed reverently. The bed of conception and of birth, of consummation of marriage and breach of marriage, of sleep and of death.
What did his limbs, when gradually extended, encounter?
New clean bed linen, additional odours, the presence of a human form, female, hers, the imprint of a human form, male, not his, some crumbs, some flakes of potted meat, which he removed.
Then
he kissed the plump, mellow, yellow, smellow melons of her rump, on each plump, melanous hemisphere, in their mellow, yellow furrow, with obscure, prolonged, provocative, melon-smellinous osculation.
the visible signs of satisfaction.
A silent contemplation, a tentative velation, a gradual abasement, a solicitous aversion, a proximate erection.
What followed this silent action?
Somnolent invocation, less somnolent recognition, incipient excitation, catechetical interrogation.
With what modifications did the narrator reply to this interrogation?
He omitted to mention the clandestine correspondence between Martha Clifford and Henry Flower, the public altercation at, in, and in the vicinity of the licensed premises of Bernard Kiernan & Co., the erotic provocation and response thereto caused by the exhibitionism of Gertrude, Gertie, surname unknown.
Was the narration otherwise unaltered by modifications?
Absolutely.
Which event or person emerged as the salient point of his narration?
Stephen Dedalus, professor and author.
What limitations of activity and inhibitions of conjugal rights were perceived by listener and narrator concerning themselves during the course of this intermittent and increasingly more laconic narration?
By the listener, a period of 10 years, 5 months and 18 days, during which carnal intercourse had been incomplete, without ejaculation of semen within the natural female organ. By the narrator, a limitation of activity, mental and corporal, inasmuch as complete mental intercourse between himself and the listener had not taken place since the consummation of puberty of the female issue of narrator and listener, 15th of September 1903.
In what direction did listener and narrator lie?
Listener, southeast by east, narrator, northwest by west, on the 53rd parallel of latitude north and 6th meridian of longitude west, at an angle of 45 degrees to the terrestrial equator.
In what posture?
Listener reclined semilaterally left hand under head, right leg extended in a straight line and resting on left leg, flexed in the attitude of Gaia Telos, fulfilled, recumbent, big with seed. Narrator reclined laterally, left, with left and right legs flexed, the index finger and thumb of the right hand resting on the bridge of his nose, in the attitude depicted in a snapshot made by Percy Apjohn, the child-man weary, the man-child in the womb.
Womb? Weary?
He rests. He has travelled.
With?
Sinbad the sailor, and Tinbad the tailor, and Jinbad the jailer, and Winbad the whaler, and Ninbad the nailer, and Finbad the failer, and Binbad the baler, and Pinbad the paler, and Binbad the baler, and Hidbad the hailer, and Rinbad the railer, and Dinbad the caler, and Finbad the quailer, and Linbad the yailer, and Xinbad the failer.
When?
Going to dark bed, there was a square round Sinbad the sailor. Rocks orcs' eggs in the night, of the bed of all the orcs, of the rocks, of darkened bed, the bright tailor.
Where?
Seven Eccles Street. The small hours of Friday, the 17th of June, 1904.
Yes, because he never did a thing like that before. Was asked to get his breakfast in bed with a couple of eggs. Yes, he came somewhere. I'm sure by his appetite. Anyway, love it's not, or he'd be off his feet thinking of her. So it was one of those night women if it was. Or else, if it's not, that's some little bitch or other he's got. Yes, because the day before yesterday, he was scribbling something in a letter when I came into the front room to show him Dickenham's death in the paper, and he covered it up with the blotting paper, pretending to be thinking about business. Probably that was it. All men get a bit like that at his age, especially getting on to 40 he is now. No fool like an old fool. And then the usual kissing me bottom. That was to hide. Not that I care two straws who he does it with. As long as I don't have the two of them under my nose all the time, like that slut, that Mary we had in Ontario Terrace, padding out her false bottom to excite him. It was all his fault, of course, ruining servants. Then proposing that she could eat at our table on Christmas Day, if you please. Oh, no, thank you, not in my house. Stealing my potatoes and the oysters, 2 and 6 per dozen. The garters I found in her room the Friday she was out, that was enough for me. A little bit too much. Her face swelled up on her with temper when I gave her the week's notice. Better do without them altogether. Do out the rooms myself quicker. Only for the damn cooking, throwing out the dirt. I gave it to him anyhow. Either she or me leaves the house. I couldn't even touch him if I thought he was with a dirty, barefaced liar and sloven like that one. Denying it up to me face and singing about the place in the WC too, because she knew she was well off. Yes, because he couldn't possibly do without it that long. So he must do it somewhere. And the last time he came on my bottom, when was it? The night Boylan gave me hand a great squeeze going along by the Tolka, singing The Young May Moon, She's Beaming Love. Because he has an idea about him and me. He's not such a fool. In any case, God knows he's a change in a way. Not like him, always never wearing the same old hat. Unless I paid some nice-looking boy to do it. A young boy would like me. I'd confuse him a little. Alone with him, if we were. I'd let him see me garters, the new ones, and make him turn red. Oh, I wish some man or other would take me sometimes when he's there and kiss me in his arms. There's nothing like a kiss, long and hot down to your soul. Almost paralyses you. Then I hate that confession. When I used to go to Father Corrigan, he touched me, Father. And what harm if he did? Where? And I said, on the canal bank, like a fool. But whereabouts on your person, my child? On the leg behind? High up, was it? Yes, rather high up. Was it where you sit down? Yes. Oh, Lord, can you say bottom right out and have done with it? What's that got to do with it? And did you, whatever way you put it, I forget, no, Father. I'd like to be embraced by one in his vestments and the smell of incense off him like the Pope. Besides, there's no danger with a priest if you're married. I wonder, was he satisfied with me? One thing I didn't like is slapping me behind going away so familiarly in the hole, though I laughed. I'm not a horse or an ass, am I? I wonder, is he awake thinking of me? Or dreaming? Am I in it? He had all he could do to keep himself from falling asleep after that last time, after we took the port and the potted meat. Had a fine salty taste. Yes, because I felt lovely and tired myself. Fell asleep sound as a top the moment I popped straight back into bed. Till that thunder woke me. God be merciful to us. I thought the heavens were coming down about us to punish us when I blessed myself and said a Hail Mary. It's like those awful thunderbolts in Gibraltar, as if the world was coming to an end. And then they come and tell you there's no God. What could you do when you make an act of contrition? The candle I lit that evening in Whitefriars Street Chapel for the month of May, see, it brought its luck. Though he'd scoff if he heard, because he never goes to church, mass or meeting. He says, your soul, you've no soul. Inside, only grey matter. Because he doesn't know what it is to have one. Yes, when I lit the lamp, because he must have come 3 or 4 times, with that tremendous big red brute of a thing he has. I thought the vein, or whatever the dickens they call it, was going to burst. Nice invention they made for women, for him to get all the pleasure. But if someone gave them a touch of it themselves, they'd know what I went through with Millie. Nobody'd believe. Cutting her teeth too. And mine a Purefoy's husband, filling her up with a child, or twins, once a year, as regular as the clock. always with the smell of children off her. Supposing I risked having another. Not of him, though. Still, if he was married, I'm sure he'd have a fine, strong child. But I don't know. Probably he has more spunk in him. Yes, that'd be awfully jolly. I suppose it was meeting Josie Breen, Powell that was, and the funeral, and thinking about me and Boylan set him off. Well, he can think what he likes now, if that'll do him any good. Still, he knows a lot of mixed up things, especially about the body and the inside. I often want to study up that myself, what we have inside us, in that family physician. I could always hear his voice talking when the room was crowded, and watch him. After that, I pretended I had a coolness on with her over him because he used to be a bit on the jealous side. Whenever he asked, who are you going to? And I said over to Floey. And he made me the present of Lord Byron's poems and the 3 pairs of gloves. So that finished that. I could quite easily get him to make up any time. I know how. Even supposing he got in with her again and was going out to see her somewhere, I'd know if he refused to eat the onions. I know plenty of ways. Ask him to tuck down the collar in me blouse, or touch him with me veil and gloves on going out. One kiss, then would send them all spinning. However, all right, we'll see then. Let him go to her. She, of course, would only be too delighted to pretend she's mad in love with him. She used to be always embracing me, Josie, whenever he was there. Meaning him, of course. Gloaming me over. And when I said I washed up and down as far as possible, asking me, and did you wash possible? The women are always egging on to that, putting it on thick when he's there. They know by his sly eye blinking a bit, putting on the indifferent when they come out with something. The kind he is what spoils them. I don't wonder in the least, because he's very handsome at that time. Trying to look like Lord Byron, I said I liked. Though he was too beautiful for a man. And he was a little before we got engaged. Afterwards, though, she didn't like it so much. The day I was in fits of laughter with the giggles I couldn't stop about all me hairpins falling out one after the other with the massive hair I had. You're always in great humour, she said. Yeah, because it grigged her. Because she knew what it meant. Because I used to tell her a good bit of what went on between us. Not all, but just enough to make her mouth water. He thinks nothing can happen without him knowing. He hadn't an idea about my mother till we were engaged. Otherwise, he never got me so cheap as he did. He was 10 times worse himself anyhow, begging me to give him a tiny cut off me drawers. That was the evening coming along Kenilworth Square. He kissed me in the eye of me glove, and I had to take it off, asking me questions. Is it permitted to inquire the shape of my bedroom? So I let him keep it. To think of me when I saw him slipping it into his pocket. Of course, he's mad on the subject of drawers. That's plain to be seen. He's always skeezing at those brazen-faced things on the bicycles, with their skirts blown up to their navels. When he saw me from behind, following in the rain, I saw him before he saw me, however, standing at the corner of the Harold's Cross Road with a new raincoat on him, with the muffler and the Zingari collars to show off his complexion, and the brown hat, looking sly boots as usual. What was he doing there where he'd no business? They can go and get whatever they like from anything at all with a skirt on it, and we're not to ask questions. But they want to know, where are you going? I could feel him coming along, skulking after me, his eyes on me neck. He'd be keeping away from the house, felt it was getting too warm for him, so I half turned and stopped. Then he pestered me to say yes, till I took off my gloves slowly, watching him. He said my open-work sleeves were too cold for the rain. Anything for an excuse to put his hand in near me drawers. Drawers, the whole blessed time, till I promised to give him the pair of me doll to carry in his waistcoat pocket. Oh, Maria Santissima, he did look a big fool dreeping in the rain. Splendid set of teeth he had. Made me hungry to look at them. And beseeched of me to lift the orange petticoat I had on with the sunray pleats, that there was nobody. He said he'd kneel down the wet if I didn't. And then writing every morning a letter, sometimes twice a day. I liked the way he made love then. He knew the way to take a woman when he sent me the 8 big poppies, because mine was the 8th. Then I wrote, the night he kissed my heart at Dolphin's Barn. I couldn't describe it simply. It makes you feel like nothing on earth. He never knew how to embrace well, like Gardner. I hope he'll come on Mondays, he said at the same time, 4. I hate people who come at all hours. Answer the door, you think it's the vegetables, and then it's somebody and you all undressed. Then this day week, we're to go to Belfast. Just as well he has to go to Ennis. His father's anniversary, the 27th. Wouldn't be pleasant if he came. Suppose our rooms at the hotel were beside each other and any fooling went on in the new bed. I couldn't tell him to stop, not bother me, with him in the next room. Or perhaps some Protestant clergyman with a cough knocking on the wall. Then he'd never believe the next day we didn't do something. It's all very well for a husband, but you can't fool a lover. The last concert I sang at, it's over a year ago. When was it? St. Teresa's Hall, Clarendon Street. Little chits and missies they have now singing Kathleen Carney and her like. On account of father being in the army, my singing the absent-minded beggar, and wearing a brooch for Lord Roberts, and Poldy not Irish enough. Yes. And he was going about with some of them Sinner Fein, or whatever they call themselves, talking the usual trash and nonsense. I hate the mention of their politics. After the war, that Praetorian Ladysmith and Bloemfontein. Lieutenant Stanley G, 8th Battalion, 2nd East Lancs Regiment, of enteric fever. If Gardner was even only decently shot, it wouldn't have been so bad. His father made his money over selling the horses for the cavalry. Well, he could buy me a nice present up in Belfast, after what I gave him. They've lovely linen up there. Or one of those nice kimono things. I must buy a mothball, like I had before, to keep in the drawer with them. He's certainly well off. I know by the cut his clothes have, and his heavy watch. But he was like a perfect devil for a few minutes after he came back with the stop press, tearing up the tickets and swearing blazes because he lost 20 quid. He said he'd lost over that outsider that won, and half he put on for me on account of Lenihan's tip. Cursing it to the lowest pits. If it's going to go on, I want at least 2 other good chemises for one thing. But I don't know what kind of drawers he likes. None at all, I think, didn't he say? Yeah, half the girls in Gibraltar never wore them either. Naked as God made them. That Andalusian singing her man Nola, she didn't make much secret of what she hadn't. 4 years more I have of life up to 35. No, what am I told? I'll be 33 in September, will I? What? Well. Look at that Mrs. Galbraith. She's much older than I am. I saw her when I was out last week. Her beauty's on the wane. She was a lovely woman. Magnificent head of hair on her, down to her waist. Tossing it back like that, like Kitty O'Shea. And that Mrs. Langtry, the Jersey Lily, the Prince of Wales was in love with. I suppose he's like the first man going the roads. Only the name a king. They're all made the one way. H.R.H. He was in Gibraltar the year I was born. Bet he found lilies there too, where he planted the tree. He planted more than that in his time. He might have planted me too if he'd come a bit sooner. Then I wouldn't be here as I am. He ought to chuck that newspaper, that Freeman's Journal, the paltry few shillings he knocks out of it. Go into an office or something where you get regular pay. Or a bank. They could put him up on a throne to count the money on the day. Of course, he prefers plottering about the house so you can't stir with him any side. What's your programme today? Wish he'd even smoke a pipe like father to get the smell of a man. Or pretended to be mooching about for advertisements. Yes, I think he made them a bit firmer, sucking them like that so long. Made me thirsty. Titties, he calls them. It's a laugh. Yeah, this one in here. Stiff the nipple gets for the least thing. I'll get him to keep that up. And I'll take those eggs beaten up with marsala, fatten them out for him. What are all those veins and things? It's curious the way it's made. 2 the same in case of twins. They're supposed to represent beauty placed up there, like those statues in the museum. One of them pretended to hide it with her hand. Are they so beautiful? Of course, compared with what a man looks like, with his 2 bags full and his other thing hanging down at him or sticking up at you like a hat rack. No wonder they hide it with a cabbage leaf. That disgusting Cameron Highlander behind the meat market. Or that other wretch with the red head behind the tree where the statue of the fish used to be, when I was past pretending he was pissing. All the pleasure those men get out of a woman. Oh, Lord. I must stretch myself. I wished he was here. Or somebody to let myself go with. Come again like that. I feel all fire inside me. They're not all like him, thank God. Some of them want you to be so nice about it. I notice the contrast. He does it and doesn't talk. Savage brute. Thursday. Friday 1. Saturday 2. Sunday 3. Oh, Lord, I can't wait till Monday. Free, from train somewhere whistling. The strength those engines have in them, like big giants. The water rolling all over and out of them all sides. It's like the end of love's old sweet song. The poor men that have to be out all the night from their wives and families in those roasting engines. Stifling it was today. I thought it was going to get like Gibraltar. My goodness, the heat there before the Levanta came on. Black as night. And the glare of the rock standing up in it like a big giant. Oh, this blanket is too heavy on me. That's better. I haven't even one decent nightdress. This thing gets all rolled under me. Besides him and his fooling. That's better. I used to be weltering then in the heat. My shift drenched with the sweat. Stuck in the cheeks of me bottom on the chair. When I stood up, they were so fattish and firm. When I got up on the sofa cushions to see with my clothes up. And the bugs, tons of them at night. And the mosquito nets. Lord, how long ago it seems, centuries. Their damn guns bursting and booming all over the shop. Especially the Queen's birthday. And when General Ulysses Grant, whoever he was or did, supposed to be some great fella, landed off the ship. And the warden marching with his keys to lock the gates. And the bagpipes. And only Captain Groves and Father talking about Rorke's Drift and Gordon at Khartoum. Oh, thanks be to the great God, I got somebody to give me what I badly wanted, to put some heart up into me. You've no chance at all in this place like he used long ago. I wish somebody would write me a love letter. His wasn't much, and I told him he could write what he liked. Yours ever, Hugh Boylan. In old Madrid, stuff silly women believe. Love is sighing, I am dying. Still, if he wrote it, I suppose there'd be some truth in it. True or no, it fills up your whole day and life. Always something to think about every moment and see it all round you like a new world. I could write the answer in bed to let him imagine me. Short, just a few words. Not those long cross letters Atty Dillon used to write to the fella that was something in the forecourts that jilted her after, out of the lady's letter writer. When I told her to say a few simple words he could twist how he likes, not acting with precipitancy, with equal candour, the greatest earthly happiness, answer to a gentleman's proposal affirmatively. My goodness, there's nothing else. It's all very fine for them. As for being a woman, as soon as you're old, they might as well throw you out in the bottom of the ash pit. Love letters. Lieutenant Mulvey's was the first. I was in bed that morning and Mrs. Rubio brought it in with the coffee. An admirer, he signed it. I near jumped out of my skin. I wanted to pick him up when I saw him following me along the Calle Real in the shop window. And then he tipped his cap at me, just in passing. But I never thought he'd write, making an appointment. I had it inside me petticoat bodice all day, reading it up in every hole and corner while Father was up in the drill instructing, to find out about the handwriting or the language of stamps. And I wanted to put on that old stupid clock to near the time. He was the first man kissed me under the Moorish wall. My sweetheart was a boy. Never entered me head what kissing meant till he put his tongue in me mouth. Oh, his mouth was sweet, like young. I put me knee up to him a few times to learn the way. What did I tell him I was engaged for? For fun. To the son of a Spanish nobleman named Don Miguel de la Flora. And he believed me that I was to be married to him in 3 years' time. There's many a true word spoken in jest, there is. A flower that bloometh. Cappoquin, he came from, he said, on the Blackwater. It was too short. Then the day before he left, May. Yes, it was May, when the infant king of Spain was born. I'm always like that in the spring. I'd like a new fella every year. Up on the tip-top under the rock gun near O'Hara's tower. I told him to struck by lightning, all about the old Barbary apes, without a tail, careering all over the show on each other's back, and throw stones at you if you went near. He was looking at me. I had that white blouse on, open in the front to encourage him as much as I could, without too openly. They were just beginning to be plump. I said I was tired. We lay over the fir tree cove. It was a wild place. I suppose it must be the highest rock in existence. The galleries, those frightful rocks, and St. Michael's Cave with the icicles or whatever they call them hanging down, and ladders all, and the mud clutching me boots. You caress them outside. They love doing that. It's the roundness there. I was leaning over him, with me white rice straw hat to take the newness out of it on the left side of me face, the best. My blouse open for his last day. Transparent kind of shirt he had. I could see his chest, pink. He wanted to touch mine with his for a moment, but I wouldn't let him. He was awfully put out first, for fear you never know consumption, or leave me with a child, embarazada. That old servant Innes told me that one drop, even if it got into you at all. Afterwards I tried with the banana, but I was afraid it might break and get lost up in me. I wanted to fire his pistol. He said he hadn't one. He didn't know what to make of me, with his peak cap on, that he always wore crooked as often as I settled it straight. HMS Calypso. That old bishop that spoke off the altar. His long preach about women's higher functions, about girls now riding the bicycle and wearing peak caps and the new woman bloomers. God send him sense, and me more money. I suppose they're called after him. I never thought that'd be my name, Bloom. When I used to write it in print to see how it looked on a visiting card, or practising for the butcher, and oblige M. Bloom. Mulvey I wouldn't go mad about. I suppose I divorced him. Mrs. Boylan. My mother, whoever she was, might have given me a nicer name, the Lord knows, after the lovely one she had, Lunita Laredo. The fun we had running along Willis Road to Europa Point, twisting in and out all round the other side of Jersey. They were shaking and dancing about in me blouse, like Millie's little ones now when she runs up the stairs. Free from that train again, weeping tone. Once in the dear dead days beyond recall. God, I hate that bit. Close me eyes. Breath. Lips forward, kiss. Sad look, eyes open. Piano. Love, sweet song. No, I'll let that out full when I get in front of the footlights again. I could have been a prima donna, only I married him. Sweet song. Deep down, chin back. Not too much, makes it double. My lady's bar's too long for an encore. No, I'll sing Winds That Blow from the South, and I'll change that lace on me black dress to show off me bobs, and Yes, by God, I'll get that big fan mended, make them burst with envy. I feel some wind in me. Better go easy, not wake him. Have him at it again, slobbering, after washing every bit of myself, back, belly and sides. If we had even a bath itself, or my own room anyway. I wish he'd sleep in some bed by himself, with his cold feet on me. Give us room even to let a fart. God, I'd do the least thing. Winds that blow. Better, yeah, get them on my side a bit. Piano, quietly sweet. There's that train far away. Pianissimo, one more song. Oh, that was a relief. Wherever you be, let your wind go free. Who knows if that pork chop I took with me cup of tea after was all right with the heat? I couldn't smell anything off it. I'm sure that queer-looking man in the pork butcher's is a great rogue. Jesus! Wait. Yes! That thing has come on me, yes! Now, wouldn't that afflict you? Of course, all the poking and rooting and ploughing he had up me. Now, what am I going to do? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Wouldn't that pester the soul out of a body? Unless he likes it. Or some men do, God knows. Well, there's always something wrong with us. 5 days every 3 or 4 weeks. Usual monthly auction. Isn't that simply sickening? Bet the cat itself is better off than us. Have we too much blood in us or what? Oh, patience above. It's pouring out of me like the sea. Anyhow, it didn't make me pregnant, as big as he is. Oh, I don't want to ruin the clean sheets I just put on. I suppose the clean linen I wore brought it on too. Oh, damn it. Damn it. Oh, Jamesy, let me up out of this. Sweet's a sin. Whoever suggested that business for women? What between clothes and cooking and children? Oh, this damn old bed too, jingling like the dickens. Suppose they could hear his way over the other side of the park. Where's the chamber gone? Easy. Oh, I've a holy horror of its breaking under me after that old commode. Oh, Lord, how noisy. I hope there are bubbles on it. I'll have to perfume it in the morning. Don't forget. I bet he never saw a better pair of thighs than that. And look how white they are. The smoothest place is right there, between this bit here. How soft, it's like a peach. Oh, easy. How the waters come down at Lahore. Him and his mad, crazy letters. My precious one, everything connected with your glorious body, everything underlined that comes from it, is a thing of beauty and joy forever. I don't know how I ever... The first night we met, when I was living in Rehoboth Terrace, we stood staring at one another for about 10 minutes, as if we'd met somewhere. Suppose on account of me being Jewess looking after me mother. He used to amuse me, the things he'd said. The half-Lutheran smile. And all the Doyles said he was going to stand for a member of Parliament. Oh, wasn't I the born fool to believe all his blather about Home Rule and the Land League? And sending me that long through of a song out of the Huguenots to sing in French, to be more classy. Au beau pays de la Touraine, that I never even sang once. Oh, I better not make an all-night sitting of this affair. They ought to make chambers a natural size, so that a woman could sit on it properly. He kneels down to do it. I suppose there isn't in all creation another man with the habits he has. I look at the way he's sleeping at the foot of the bed. Well, how can he? The hard bolster. As well he doesn't kick, or he might knock out all me teeth. Oh, damn this stinking thing. Anyway, where's this? Those napkins? Oh, yes, I know. Oh, I hope that old press doesn't creak. I knew it would. He's sleeping hard. Had a good time somewhere. Still, she must have given him great value for his money. Of course, he has to pay for it from her. Oh, this nuisance of a thing. I hope they'll have something better for us in the other world. Tying ourselves up, God help us. That's all right for tonight now. Oh, the lumpy old jingly bed. Oh, I like me bed. Yes, some little bitch he's got in with, of course. That's the way his money goes. This is the fruits of Mr. Paddy Dignam. Yes, they were all in great style at the funeral in the paper boiling brought. If they saw a real officer's funeral, that'd be something. Reversed arms, muffled drums, the poor horse walking behind in black. L. Boom and Tom Kernan. That drunken little barrelly man that bit his tongue off falling down the men's WC drunk in some place or other. And Martin Cunningham and the two Daedaluses. I see it all now plainly. And they called that friendship killing and then burying one another. And they all with their wives and families at home. Well, they're not going to get my husband again into their clutches if I can help it. Making fun of him then behind his back, because he has the sense enough not to squander every penny piece he earns down their gullets and looks after his wife and family. Good for nothings. And Simon Daedalus too. He was always turning up half screwed, singing the second verse first. He had a delicious, glorious voice. I wonder what sort is his son. He says he's an author, going to be a university professor of Italian, and I'm to take lessons from young Stephen Daedalus. I saw him driving down to the Kingsbridge station with his father and mother. I was in mourning. That's 11 years ago now. Yes, he'd be 11. Though what was the good of going into mourning? My first cry was enough for me. I heard the death watch too ticking on the wall. Of course he insisted. He'd go into mourning for the cat. I suppose he's a man now by this time. He was an innocent boy then, and a darling little fella in his Lord Fauntleroy suit and curly hairs like a prince on the stage. Wait, by God, yes, wait, yes, hold on. He was on the cars this morning when I laid out the deck. Union with a young stranger, neither dark nor fair, you met before. I thought it meant him, but he's no chicken, nor a stranger either. Besides, my face was turned the other way. What was the seventh card after that? 10 of spades for a journey by land. Then there was a letter on its way, and scandals too. 3 queens and the 8 of diamonds for a rise in society. Yes, wait, and didn't I dream of something too? Yes, there was something about poetry in it. I hope he hasn't got long, greasy hair hanging into his eyes, or standing up like a red Indian. What did they go about like that for? Only getting themselves and their poetry laughed at. I wonder, is he too young? He's about, 88 I was married, 88, Millie's 15 yesterday, 89. What age was he then at Dillon's? 5 or 6 about? 88. I suppose he's 20 or more. I'm not too old for him if he's 23 or 24. I hope he's not that stuck-up university student sort. No, otherwise he wouldn't go sitting down in the old kitchen with him, taking Epsom's cocoa and talking. Of course, he pretended to understand it all. Probably he told him he was out at Trinity College. He's very young to be a professor. They all write about some woman in their poetry. Well, I suppose he won't find many like me. Where softly sighs of love the light guitar, where poetry is in the air, the blue sea and the moon shining so beautifully. Coming back on the night boat from Tarifa, the lighthouse at Europa Point. The guitar that fella played, it was so expressive. I'm sure he's very distinguished. I'd like to meet a man like that. I'm sure it'd be grand if I can only get in with a handsome young poet of my age. I'll read and study all I can find, or learn a bit off by heart. If I knew who he likes, so he won't think me stupid. If he thinks all women are the same, and I can teach him the other, I'll make him feel all over him till he half faints under me. Then he'll write about me, lover and mistress, publicly too, with our 2 photographs in all the papers when he becomes famous. Oh, but then what am I going to do about him, though? It's a wonder I'm not an old shrivelled hag before me time living with him. So cold, never embracing me except sometimes when he's asleep, the wrong end of me, not knowing I suppose who he has. Any man that'd kiss a woman's bottom, I'd throw me hat at him after that. He'd kiss anything unnatural. Didn't he kiss our hall door? Did. What a madman. Nobody understands his cracked ideas but me. Still, of course, a woman wants to be embraced 20 times a day almost, to make her look young, no matter by who, so long as to be in love or loved by someone. If the fella you want isn't there. Sometimes, by the Lord God, I was thinking I'd go round by the quays there some dark evening where nobody'd know me and pick up a sailor off the sea that'd be hot on for it, not care a pin whose it was. Only do it off up in some gate somewhere. Only I suppose the half of those sailors are rotten again with disease. Oh, move over your big carcass out of that. For the love of Mike, listen to him. A wind that wafts my sighs to thee. Well, he may sleep inside the great suggester Don Poldo de la Flora. If he knew how he came out in the cards this morning, he'd have something to decide for. A dark man in some perplexity, and between 2 sevens too, imprisoned for Lord knows what he does that I don't know. They treat you like dirt. I don't care what anyone says. It'd be much better for the world to be governed by the women in it. You wouldn't see women going and killing one another and slaughtering. When do you ever see a woman rolling around drunk like they do, or gambling every penny they have and losing it on horses? Sure, they wouldn't be in the world at all, only for us. They don't know what it is to be a woman and a mother. And how could they? Where would they all of them be if they hadn't all a mother to look after them? But I never had. That's why I suppose he's running wild now. Out at night, away from his books and studies, not living at home on account of the usual rowy house, I suppose. Well, it's a poor case that those that have a fine son like that, they're not satisfied, and I none. I suppose I oughtn't to have buried him in that little woolly jacket I knitted, crying as I was, but give it to some poor child. But I knew well I'd never have another. Our first death, too, it was. We were never the same since. Oh, I'm not going to think myself into the glooms about that anymore. I wonder why he wouldn't stay the night. He could easily have slept in there on the sofa in the other room. I suppose he was as shy as a boy, he being so young, hardly 20, with me in the next room. He'd have heard me on the chamber. Ah, what harm? Daedalus. I wonder, it's like those names in Gibraltar, Della Paz, Della Grazia. They're the devil's queer names there. Father Villaplana of Santa Maria that gave me the rosary. Rosales E. O'Reilly in the Calle La Cienta Revueltas. And Pissimbo and Mrs. O'Pisso in Governor Street. Oh, what a name. I'd go and drown myself in the first river if I had a name like that, I declare to God. What a pity he didn't stay. I'd love to have a long talk with an intelligent, well-educated person. 1:15. What an unearthly hour. Suppose they're just getting up in China, combing out their pigtails for the day. We'll soon have the nuns ringing the Angelus. They've nobody to come in to spoil their sleep. Let me see if I can doze off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of flowers are those on the wallpaper? I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming in roses. God of heaven, there's nothing like nature. The wild mountains, then the sea, and the waves rushing. The sun shines for you, he said, the day we were lying among the rhododendrons on Holt Head, in the grey tweed suit and his straw hat. The day I got him to propose to me. Yes. First, I gave him the bit of seed cake out of me mouth. And it was leap year like now. Yes, 16 years ago. My God, after that long kiss, I near lost me breath. Yes. He said I was a flower of the mountain. Yes. So we are, flowers. All of a woman's body. Yes. That was one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes, that was why I like him. Because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get round him. And I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't answer first, only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things he didn't know. of Mulvey and Mr. Stanhope and father, and old Captain Groves, and the sailors, and the sentry in front of the governor's house, with the thing round his white helmet, poor devil, half roasted, and the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs, and the auctions in the morning, the Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs and the devil knows who else from all ends of Europe. Yes, and those handsome Moors all in white and turbans like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop, and Ronda with the old windows of the posadas, and the wine shops half open at night, and the castanets, and the night we missed the boat at Algeciras, and the watchman going about serene with his lamp, and oh, that awful deep down torrent, and the sea, crimson sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets, and the fig trees in the Alameda Gardens. Yes, and all the queer little streets, and the pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jasmine and geraniums and cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, for I was the flower of the mountain. Yes, when I put the rose in me hair, like the Andalusian girls used, or shall I wear red? Yes, and how he kissed me, and I thought, as well him as another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again, yes, and then he asked me, would I, yes, to say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around, yes, and drew him down to me so I could feel me breasts all perfume, yes, and his heart was going like mad, and yes, I said, yes, I will, yes.